Okay. Welcome, everyone. It is the 28th of March of 2024, and we are convening ELPCO's March hybrid meeting. Welcome, everyone out there in Zoom and everyone in the room. We are going to start our agenda tonight doing some opening or some introductions. I am going to let y'all know in advance that if the fire department does show up, if they're not at a call or something, then we will go ahead and let them talk while we're doing introductions. We just lost one of our board members. David Jones was in the room. He represents our at-large population. He lives over near Gilmer Park. So we'll say hi to him in a second. We also have Alicia Cunningham Bryant in the room. Alicia represents our West Emerson neighborhood. She's also a co-chair of our land use committee. And next to her, we have Alan Crittenden. Alan is our other co-chair of the land use committee, and he represents the at-large population. We have Jeanette Young, our secretary, here in the room tonight. And let's see, I don't know that we have anyone online at this point. Oh, we have more people coming in. So give us 1 second. Marshall, we're going to introduce you. We have Marshall Bailey coming into the room right now. He represents our East Liberty neighborhood. And I am going to just give you a little bit of a rundown on what we've been working on in terms of increasing our board. We will have a new representative representing our vacant spot in East Emerson joining us soon. And we have finally nailed the 9th and 9th liaison position and how we want that to operate. So if anybody out there is interested in joining us, please go ahead and email us at elpcoslc@gmail.com. Let's see, we're going to pause for a second and make sure that we're letting everybody in, so hang on out there. Give us a second. Come on in. We were just talking about you. Go ahead and have a seat. We have several people just running late, so be patient with us as we go ahead and let everybody else around the table. We'll go ahead and continue to introduce them as they come to the table. So just entering the room, we had David Jones again, and he represents the at-large population. David, say hi.
Hi.
Marnie Chandler just came into the room. She represents the Gilmer Park area. Go ahead and say hi, Marnie.
Hi.
You know what you look like. And again, I would like to introduce somebody who is new to our board. She's going to start attending the requisite 3 meetings before she becomes official. Although we've had 2 fabulous encounters, and I'm just going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. This is another Alicia. She is new to Salt Lake, kind of, but she is going to represent our East Emerson neighborhood, which is very close to the new tap house and wine bar that we just got through a conditional use, as well as the Kensington Byway. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry I'm a little late, it's hard time, but I'm Alicia. I grew up in West Jordan, South Jordan area, so I'm somewhat local. And then I moved around a lot. I was in the Army for 12 years, and I just was recently in Boston getting my master's degree in urban planning, and then ended up back here in Salt Lake. So yeah, I ended up in the East Emerson area, about 11th and Kensington. I work right now as an urban planner at a transportation consulting firm. So I do a lot of bike and pedestrian infrastructure planning and design. Yeah, so excited to learn everything that, y'all have been working on and get involved.
So I met Alicia at the District 5 Town Hall that just recently happened at Horizonte. And I'm immediately like, went to her and scooped her into our board. So we're really excited to have you. We're really excited to hear about your, your background and what your interest is. One thing that we did talk about is she'd like to get a kind of a head start on, what we're working on land use. And I think the most interesting thing is related to the Lake Street. So I'm going to invite you all out to welcome Alicia and kind of give her the lowdown, the land use committee on, Alicia and her partner, who's also a lovely, gentleman that I met, to, just kind of let them know what we're doing in terms of that. So we'll talk about that after the meeting, schedule a time for that. All right, does anybody else have anything they want to say in terms of introductions? Okay, great. So no police or no fire. I talked to Captain Jefferson and they've been really busy. So he has just let me know that he's on our count. They're on our calendar every month. But of course they don't come when they are doing work on the streets. Next on our list is questions for Detective Sam Follows. Detective Follows has been an incredible instrument for us recently. We've been coordinating a lot of good things happening in ELPCO related to crime. We had a couple of issues in Gilmer Park as well as the west of East and Detective Howells really, came to our rescue, really helped us out, and especially helped us get around some of the more bureaucratical issues that maybe come to play. These issues were all related to youth, and I think that, as we're all working with the closures of schools and things like that, that I know that our board and ELPCO in general is really supportive of youth. So to have him support us has been really great. We're going to take a little second to see if anybody has any questions that we will record here during the meeting, and if you want us to pass them on to Detective Follows.
I have something. I'm sorry, is Detective Follows in here?
I'm sorry, he's not here. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I don't know either of these people, so I was like,
No, we're passing them on because he is out. So
I wish I was as good looking as Detective Follow.
well, I was, and you guys are probably also aware that there's been some hit and runs, up right by my house. The girl right behind me. Yeah.
yeah.
I was kind of shocked. I didn't know about that until they caught the guy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would love if there's any further information about that, because there's nothing in the news that I.
What date are you specifically talking about in the one that you're talking about?
The most recent one was 2 ladies.
Uh-huh.
That was the last one before they caught him, but the other person came forward to the news, and she lives right behind me, and she had 2 broken legs, and I didn't know she had been hit, but over by East High.
Right, so
And
to be clear,
so I'm sorry.
and we'll just be really, open about this, in that we have, of course, I'm the West of East representative. I live directly behind East High School and have for almost 3 decades now. So we have been having a huge uptake in dangerous drivers and speeders. And on several different dates, we have had accidents around the school. I was actually hit by an unlicensed driver. There was one right outside of my house, a hit and run, and then a couple more hit and runs. So it really has escalated. And as we're just gonna take care of this all in one fell swoop, because Marnie could speak to this too. We also had the closing of the Garden Park ward for vandalism and burglary as a result of some of the youth that are in our neighborhood. So we're working really hard to try and support the youth. At the same time, we're getting some of these safety points in check, because I think that you're all aware of next door. There tends to be the bumping heads of what is kids just acting like kids, and then what crosses the line. So it is really a balancing act that we walk between supporting the kids that are in our neighborhood and making sure that everyone's safe all the time. So do you have an update, or do you want to give an update on the garden park?
Yeah, it's open, and now I'm gonna blank, it's open now 3 days a week. You can also make appointments if anybody wants to do photography. I think that was an important thing to the larger Salt Lake community. That was on the advice of the police. And, the LDS churches are not supposed to put cameras inside or outside churches, and I guess they got a special permission. And so once those are installed, they're gonna open it again, is my understanding. So I'll bring that.
So the way that this started out for us was that we received a email from the bishop, so we were aware of what was happening, and then living right there behind East and right next to East, we were able to sort of combine forces, and that the police recommended that they shut down the public, the access to the public. And to my knowledge, we can check in with Detective Follows when he comes back, that he came in and did the SEC evaluation when they're looking at the environmental components that lead to crime, which is something that, a lot of institutions should do, because it does really help. Things like where to put cameras and cutting back trees and bush and stuff like that can be dangerous. And so we're rolling. We also have a giant camera right by my house on Sunnyside between 800 and 900 South. So just, we need to make sure that our community is aware of that. We're doing our best to walk this fine line. And, but if you do have issues, hit and runs, we need to report them. We really need to report them. Or if we're having these vandalisms and break-ins, they went on for quite a while before people felt comfortable reporting them.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think there was this feeling that was a one-time thing.
right.
And then it happened like 3 times.
So-
3 different people,
Again, we can't really speak to that. I mean, like,
just context, I don't know.
yeah, we can't really speak to that because, of course, it's kind of an ongoing investigation. And I don't want to step across a line and say what I know at this point, sort of in a public way. Because I could be wrong. And because it is an investigation and it is an open case, I just don't feel
I
comfortable
honestly don't
talking
know.
They
about.
did make
More
an
either.
arrest. There was a story about it in the paper.
I read this story.
Are you talking about the hit and run? or
Yes,
the
the
van-
hit and run.
They did.
Yeah.
That was such a relief to me, because
Mhm.
I walk around that corner
Yeah.
all the time, and my kids do too.
So also, in addition, we're also working with the engineers from the city to help us, 9 South has been really dangerous. People coming down the hill very fast, going into Gilmore Park, that crossing right there. And,
Well,
as you know, 12, as you know, so many of the students, unfortunately, are, traveling very far to go to school. So, they're either on 8 South or 9 South, all the way from the west side. So, if they're in a hurry or whatever, I think that we're starting to see the spikes in this kind of activity. In addition to the racing, the car racing and things like that, that is it's just a pandemic all over the city, high speed car
The
racing. is
construction
huge, right?
doesn't.
So the engineering department is working with us to try and design corners to be more safe. So when we're looking out uphill, we don't have to go halfway into the middle of the road to see past all the cars there. So, as far as the community council, I think this is the work that we're pretty good at doing. This just happens to be right close to my house, but it's something we did on Kensington and other places. So I invite the public, everyone online and everybody in the room to keep those things in mind, because, these are the kind of things we can work with the city to mitigate. And I brought up last week the concept of the CIPs, and we should start to, now that we have a great board. And, again, thank you, board. We have a great board. just to be clear about when we see safety hazards that are affecting people over and over, we reach out to people like Glenn, and they are very helpful to us. So we appreciate it. Okay, so the next thing on our list is questions from Darren Mono.
Christina,
Yeah,
would it be
Josh?
okay if I go a little earlier, or before that? I'm expecting a knock on my door in the next 15 minutes. I'm just worried that if that happens, I'm not gonna be as available to,
Josh, yeah, actually, this is a great time. Welcome, Josh. He's our District 5 liaison with the mayor's office. This is Joshua Boyle. And Josh is gonna give us a rundown of what's new and happening in the mayor's office, but he's also gonna.
could you give me screen share ability?
Yeah. He's also gonna help us talk about the mobile app a little bit. How's that work there, Josh?
Yes, that did work. Let me pull up what I'm gonna share here.
Great.
Okay, great. So my name is Josh Arroyo. I'm the community liaison for District 5, and I'm happy to be here virtually with you guys tonight. I just had some updates to share from our office and from the administration's departments, and then happy to take questions, and we can talk about the mobile app as well. First of all, the slc.gov/feedback website is where you go to find feedback or surveys that the city's currently engaging in for public comment. They're all sort of congregated in this one website. And so I encourage everyone to go to slc.gov/feedback as it's regularly updated. Public Lands is doing a project called the Emerald Ribbon Action Plan, planning for the future of the Jordan River Parkway. And so there are some opportunities to take a survey, as well as other events coming up for engagement. It's called Emerald Ribbon Plan, and its website is just emeraldribbonplan.com, and you can go there and learn more about that project. Important for the whole city, as all of us, regardless of which side you're on of the city, use the Jordan River, and our public lands department is putting a lot of work into getting the public's feedback on what people would like to see to improve the Jordan River. Our sustainability department will be launching the landscaping equipment exchange program starting in April. Salt Lake City is offering a number of vouchers, rebates for residents to switch to electric lawnmowers, leaf blowers, and trimmers. And so depending on whether you're willing to recycle gas-powered equipment or just want a rebate to purchase a new piece of equipment, that is an option available to residents. And slcgreen.com/landscaping is the website for that. The applications open in April. I don't have the exact date of when those will open, but it will be sort of a lottery system. So once that application opens, you go in and sign up for that if you want that incentive, and then you'll be, selected because we anticipate it'll be a huge or pretty big interest in that. From our homeless engagement and response team, there's a hygiene kit drive currently ongoing through the end of this week. Some of the items needed are there on the screen: toothbrushes, toothpaste, washcloths, deodorants, things like that for personal hygiene for our unsheltered community. And the address for drop off is 155 East, 900 South, suite number 200, and that is through the end of this week. On April 2nd, along with that, at the Sorensen Unity Center, there will be a hygiene kit packing volunteer opportunity at Sorensen Unity Center, April 2nd, 5:30 to 7:30. And take a look at that as well. I have those QR codes there, but also online at the Homeless Engagement and Response Team's webpage, you can find that information. Our Love Your Block team is working on Earth Day volunteer activities on Saturday, April 20th, Jordan River cleanups, debris removal, and some other opportunities. And so you can sign up for those at slc.gov/stewardship if you're planning ahead and want to volunteer on Earth Day to help clean up that area. That'd be much appreciated. And Lastly, our community outreach team does office hours where we go out to different locations throughout the city to engage with residents and talk with them about issues in their neighborhood. For District 5, I will be at Public Coffee on Tuesday, April 23rd from 9 to 11 a.m. And we'll be sharing more information about that with the Community Council, with Christina, to put on social media to remind people about that, since it's still all the way until the 23rd. But that is all I have for these updates, and I'm happy to take any feedback, but also I would just mention that we encourage people to report issues through the SLC mobile app. The SLC mobile, when you report an issue there, is directed or routed to the appropriate or corresponding city department for whatever issue you report. For example, if you report an issue with a homeless encampment or related trash or human waste, that's forwarded to the homeless engagement and response team. If you were to report a pothole, that goes to the streets team, and so on. And so if there's any questions or issues that you're having with the mobile app, definitely feel free to reach out to our office, as we can communicate with those departments and figure out where requests are going or where things may be getting stuck if things are not being addressed. And we're always trying to improve our process with regard to the app and improve the technology and the responsiveness across all the different request types that you can do on that app. So did want to share that as well. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Josh. I'm gonna start off with a question/comment. So following the budget amendment process with the city council, we're hearing that we're finally going to get an update to the app that's maybe going to work out some of the kinks that have been happening. And have you heard anything about when maybe the new app might come online, or the new
I have not.
technology?
So currently there's another avenue of reporting issues, and that's through myslc.gov. It's just a different sort of platform that it's processed through online that goes to city departments. A lot of city departments now are currently in the process of going onto one sort of uniform CRM or customer resource management through Salesforce. And so training is ongoing on that. And the purpose of that is to better track requests that come in. Sometimes people will call about an issue and call multiple departments, and just to ensure that efforts aren't being duplicated across different city departments. That should help streamline some of that, some of those issues that come up sometimes, and making sure that balls aren't dropped between when things are passed on between city departments. And so I don't have a timeline on when that will be launched, but I know that it's being worked on.
Right. Okay, I just have a list of questions that people have asked, and some of them are more intensive that I think maybe we should put on hold for a longer discussion, but I want to make sure anybody in the room has any questions or comments regarding your experience with reporting, or questions about asking for assistance from the city through that app.
Try to.
I have, it works really well. The only one that gets squiggly sometimes is, the street for storage, and sometimes you have to call,
Yeah.
as opposed to using that. For the app, you can use the app and then they tell you to call.
Yeah, I've used it a couple of times and had a relatively immediate response.
Yeah.
And follow-up telling me about the response.
So that brings us to two things, Josh. We've had a lot of input from our neighbors. And actually, I went to the Sugar House Community Council meeting and a couple other meetings where, it really feels like we need to educate folks that when they get a response, that doesn't mean necessarily that the issue has been handled, but in fact, it has been routed to the correct department. And that comes up again, time and time again, where people feel like they've gotten the response and it's still happening. So is there any way that you think that we can better educate our public on what those responses mean, or maybe have the city tweak the response to just be more clear that their response is that they have just sent it, they've routed it correctly?
Is your question just basically how to resolve, figure out where a request is, or
It's about messaging.
about messaging?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the messaging definitely is part of when we're talking about developing a new app or a new process, getting the word out there to people about the app, about how to use it. The public education part of it is important, especially for people that don't engage with the city as much and know that they are not aware that they can report things to the city through an app, and they don't have to call any particular department or find out who to call. They can just put a request in the app. But yeah, I think those processes can be improved, as well as providing people who give requests, contact information for who to call to follow up with an issue, things like that just give people a little bit more reassurance that when they put something in the app, that it's actually going to be looked at and addressed. If there's currently any issues or certain types of requests that are maybe slower to respond to for some reason.
Great. Yeah, I heard from several different people that the new refined app will hopefully help a lot. I concur with Alicia and what Alan said in the room, that it's really helpful, except for I do think that the slow issues that we do get complaints about are parking enforcement, building enforcement, and just anything around enforcement. So, if they need, graffiti works great, all of these kind of things are really fabulous. So we appreciate that. And
There's a question in the chat. Michael Souls was hoping to ask that.
Can you read it?
He just asked if he could ask
Oh,
a question.
absolutely. Yeah. Unmute yourself. Hi, welcome. We can't hear you. Where'd he go?
No, we can't see him.
There's also someone in the waiting room now too. Okay,
Nope.
we still can't hear you. Maybe you could type it in the chat and I'll read it aloud for you.
Still showing you.
Oh, technology.
Apparently he can't hear you either.
Can you hear me okay, Michael? We can't hear you. Not at all.
Start over.
It's not on.
There we go.
And he can hear us.
You would hope after 3 years we'd have this figured out, but it's still rough. 4 years.
Huh?
Oh, man. Sneaks up on you.
I don't know. Can you type it in the chat, Michael? That would be great. Oh, here we go.
Oh, he said, let me type a message.
Okay, fantastic. We'll come back to you. Yeah, sorry, I don't know why we can't get you unmuted.
Also, I'm
Okay.
going to put in the chat for anyone on there, my contact information. I know, Christina, you have it and can
Yeah.
give it to anyone in the room that might need it, but I'll put it in the chat for anyone there.
Okay, fantastic, Josh. We really appreciate all the communication we've had recently. It's helpful. Okay, we have someone else entered the room, so I just want to make sure that everyone out there in Zoom is getting your questions asked. So we can follow up. And we can always come back. It's pretty informal here. Michael?
He's working on his settings.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
did type in the chat, that we can continue the meeting, and so
I see it.
when he gets a chance.
Okay, Josh, we're gonna just let you go because Michael's question seems to be, we'll just forward it on and make sure it gets answered after the meeting or whatever. we'll help them out. So thank you for coming tonight and good luck with whoever's knocking on your door. Is he there?
He's,
Well, he left.
he's gone.
Probably the other door.
Yeah, okay, so this means we're on to the Salt Lake City 1100 East reconstruction part of our meeting. Tonight we have Lynn Jacobs, who we worked with a lot. Welcome, Lynn. Lynn is
Thanks,
gonna give us
everyone, for
an
having
update.
me. As you may have noticed, we've started construction again, and I think you mentioned earlier, all the construction, and thank you all, pardon our dust, we've got Sugar House pretty torn up, and
Yeah.
we started again on 1100 East for the second year and second phase of that project, so. I do have a few notes from Megan Lether, who is the engineer in charge of that project. She was not able to make it tonight, but she represents engineering. She manages the contractor day to day. I'm from transportation, kind of help manage the permit that we give the contractor for what they're allowed to do. So this is basically where they're at this year. They've got to do a lot of storm drain upgrades. So you may notice that there are boxes and pipes out there. That's to help things drain better in the future. And I think that's sorely needed on this roadway. So they've got to put in the storm drain between 1300 South and Laird Avenue. And then they have a couple crossings of the roadway, one's at Princeton and one's at Yale. When they're doing those crossings, you'll notice that they'll actually, at some points when they're out in the middle of the roadway working, they'll actually have to get it down to just one lane of traffic, and they'll use flaggers to get you around them. Other than that, they really are supposed to keep one lane open in each direction. So you should be able to get through. I think we've marked it local traffic only. And that's intentional. We're trying to just focus on letting you guys get in, get out. The businesses get their customers in and out, and trying to push anyone who's just using this as a cut through away. So,
But
yeah,
if you go drive through Sugar House, it's just one way,
it is one way in that part of Sugar House down by 21st South.
right?
The reason for that is that area down there, right around Sugar House Coffee. And I'm involved in that project as well. It's very narrow. It's more narrow in that area than it is up here. And the contractor that's doing that project actually has a larger scope. They're replacing water line, they're doing a bunch of storm drain, they're doing all the sidewalk, curb and gutter, roadway. They got a lot of work to do.
So that's a different project?
It is,
Oh,
yeah. We, back when we originally envisioned rebuilding 11th East and Highland Drive, we said, this is too big for one contractor to do. And so we broke it into half, and we bid this northern project as one design project effort, and then the southern project as a separate one.
okay.
So, but I'm happy to answer any of the questions about Sugar House. I'm pretty involved in everything that's going on down there too.
Well, I'm just curious, who's the contractors?
So the contractor to the south is Silver Spur is the name of that contractor. The one that's up here is called Beck. And then we now have 2100 South under construction, and that's Stacy Whitbeck is a contractor doing that. So we have three different contractors that are all doing these projects, and it's just because there's such a large volume of work to do that it's hard for any one contractor to tackle. And it's also makes it more manageable for us. We can kind of break them into pieces and manage it a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The 21st South project that's the big doozy.
Yeah, I've had to get to a couple of places in that area in the last 3 weeks. And some of them,
In Sugar House?
yeah, I had to get to the post office one day, which turned out to be a little more of an
It's
expedition.
really hard for you guys to get to the post office.
Yeah, it is. And then I had to get to the liquor store one day. That was also a challenge.
Yeah.
Has there been any thought given to having some kind of an interactive site that would let us put in where we're trying to go and have you all tell us how to get
So
there?
there is actually,
Target Allen.
yeah, we don't have like an interactive, if I put in my origin destination, it'll route me, but what we do have is a regular update that you can sign up for that will give you a weekly, here's what's going on this week, so that you kind of know what's going on, and then you can hopefully kind of plan your life around what's happening out there. Getting to the liquor store seems really important, given all the pain that we're putting everyone through. I can
And
totally
the other
understand
liquor
that.
store's under construction too.
Right,
You know, right?
right.
So
Yeah.
So
everything's a mess.
the section of Highland Drive, or 1100 East, just north of 21st South, is one way only northbound. We were originally thinking about having it be southbound. The businesses in that area actually pulled their customers and found out most of them were coming from 21st South, and so they asked us to try to keep their business alive, to have it run northbound instead, and we agreed with that perspective and let them do that. It will be like that basically through this year. So they're gonna be doing this section from 21st South to Ramona until about June. And then they're planning on completely doing that entire piece before they move on. And then they'll do the piece from Ramona to Logan, which is just north of 1700. That will be the remainder of the year. By November, they're supposed to be done, complete, and out of here. Your contractor, the one that's working up here in ELPCO, up in the northern section, if you don't mind, I'll finish the notes so I don't forget anything important. So like I said, there's a couple of crossings to come, Princeton, Yale, Herbert to Michigan. So, all of that storm drain work should be done in mid-May. So they'll be done with the pipe work if they're on schedule. Granted, take all this with a grain of salt. Weather changes that we didn't anticipate in the ground, there's all sorts of things that can happen. The curb and gutter replacement, as you notice, they started at Hub and Spoke, and they're working northbound on that side of the road. The current plan is to try to contain them to about a 2-block area and make them start to put it back together before we let them move on. We may let them kind of advance a little bit so that they can just keep their production going. This is a real struggle that we have. We want to minimize the impacts to the community. We also want to get this project built as fast as we can. And so we're constantly arguing and struggling to try to figure out how to strike that balance, if you will. So that's the plan. They expect to be all the way up to the roundabout by about late June. And then they'll turn around and they'll work back down towards the south, and they'll do that side of the roadway. And then that should be done mid-September. Once they've done the curb and gutter and the sidewalk on both sides, they come in and they mill off the old asphalt and then they pave. And if you guys watched how that went on the southern project, that's actually about the fastest part of the project, because they come in and they just mill it, come right back in and pave. And plan is to have all that pavement done in early October. And then, you know, you'll see the additional upgrades like those little bike islands that we put in and the signage. That will happen after the paving over a period of a couple weeks or a month. You get everything paved and then they come back in and they add the signage, the striping, all the little details come at the end. And so you won't see it complete until the end of the year. We got a lot of people last year that were really frustrated because the striping wasn't in yet, or the no parking signs weren't quite right. And it takes us about a month or so after paving to get all that dialed in. So just be patient with us. We'll get there. The other thing I actually found some good old data on this roadway, looking at speeds and volumes and what's happened. So we've done a little bit of comparison for the section that's done. And
Is that 13th to 17th on 11th?
that 13th to 17th area. So I went back and found some data from 2016. So pre-pandemic, back when the world was a much simpler place, I guess, I don't know. And I compared it to what we have now. And the biggest takeaway is that we actually saw a tremendous reduction in the amount of speeding that we saw from before.
Yeah.
So if you look at the previous data, we had about 55% of cars were speeding. Now, most of those were going 1 to 4 miles per hour over the speed limit.
Yeah.
But there were a fair number of them that were going 40 plus, right? And I think you guys all experienced that firsthand. Christina and I talked about how scary it used to be on this roadway. And I remember when I was sitting out there one day and I watched a car coming down, probably going 30, 35, and a truck passed them. And I went, oh my gosh, this is nuts, right? And so we've seen a pretty good reduction in what we call the violation rate. So it used to be about 55% of cars were speeding. Now it's more like 20%. And more importantly, the cars that were going really fast have really been reduced. And so we're very encouraged. I know that some people are frustrated with the new design. They feel like doing the slalom course and not sure where to park, not sure where the bike should go. But it is accomplishing what we were after, and that is to get the speeds down. Volumes are down a little bit too. It's hard to say whether that's construction made it so people are avoiding the area. Now, we did do our data collection in the time period when nothing was under construction in this area. So that helps. But you know, down south, we still had construction going on, so volumes could be down because of that. Also, if you look at volumes, 2016 to now is a different, like we had the pandemic and people changed their behavior, everything's kind of upset. But in general, what we're seeing are a little bit lower speeds, a lot fewer people speeding, and a little bit lower traffic volume, which is really great for people that live on this roadway to not have to deal with the speeding as much. So we're encouraged by that, and our plan is to take that same design and apply it up north where we're building now.
So just to clarify for everyone, before we ask or get questions going, is that we went to Lynn and to Megan, David and I, with some questions and concerns about the perception versus what was really happening. And of course, because I really like to collect data, we talked to both these guys as well as the folks that are doing the other traffic calming in our neighborhood about doing some subjective, interviews of people in our neighborhood about what they feel like the traffic is doing higher or lower, as opposed to what we're actually seeing from the data. So that's going to be an ongoing process. But thank you. To us, it's really encouraging we really want to see those top ends come down. So people are going to speed, but if they're not going 55 and 60, really high speeds that are gonna be really super dangerous all the time that's what's encouraging. So Marnie has a question.
I think you had.
Do you have a
Yeah.
question?
On the 9 line on the east side, is there any more plans for painting, striping, identifying bike lane versus
Yes.
pedestrian?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
a nightmare right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So here's what happened with that is, they were a little behind schedule finishing up last year. And we have a requirement that it has to be a certain temperature and it has to be dry before we put paint down. And so last fall, they kind of ran out of time before they got
Okay,
all that paint in. And so the whole length of Ninth South, you're gonna notice there's missing crosswalks, there's missing stop bars, there's missing arrows. The plan is, as soon as the weather allows us to, we'll be having the contractor go out and finish the job. The same thing happened on Highland Drive, the same thing happened on a lot of our projects last year. One of the big problems we ran into last year is, if you guys all remember the flooding we had about this time last year, a lot of our streets guys were working on flood mitigation stuff, and it delayed them starting the striping work. And so because of that, and it wasn't just our municipality, municipalities all across the valley had the same situation. Because of that, we ended up having to hire contractors to do a lot of our striping, which we normally don't have to do. And they were stretched thin. And, back in September, October, it was almost impossible to get any of the striping people to show up to actually get the job done, because they were all just scrambling.
will there be a separation or a difference between, will the pedestrian sidewalk be identified separate from the bike lane?
On the
I'm
9
finding-
line?
I'm a cyclist and I go 20 miles an hour and there's people with dogs and strollers and everything else on the bike lane, and it's like, somebody's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
And there's a sidewalk just like 10 feet away.
Yeah, and it's not very straight.
And to be fair, I haven't been very involved in the 9 line project, so I really don't want to answer your question because I
Yeah.
don't know the answer,
Okay.
but I'd be happy to look more
Something
into it.
needs to be done or somebody's gonna get
Yeah.
hurt
So we
really
did
bad.
meet just recently with Bill Knowles, who is the ombudsman from the city regarding these projects, and especially over 900 South, and Bill. He's worked with us and our economic development, as well as whatever's going on with the road at any given time. Bill is the best. So
Okay.
he said the same thing, is that there is issues with the weather in laying down those any sort of striping or whatever. And again, we've already talked about the issues with the lighting, and the lights are out because they're having to replace all the conduit and the wires because they have been stripped. Now, Steve, you bring up a really great question, because I was just talking to Alan, at the coffee garden after our presentation. And there is an issue that I'm gonna tell you about. I also need to tell Bill about this. That now you have seating that basically bumps up right against the trail. And it's really difficult for them to maintain their public, to get them from driving like chairs out into the sun or whatever. People just don't identify with that as a place where people are gonna be riding their
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Some
Tell-
challenges to deal with.
And right there is not both a bike lane and a
right,
sidewalk.
so it is something we're gonna
So
have to
that's
work
the
on.
We have a lot of challenges to deal with. Now, I will say with a lot of our projects down in Sugarloaf, I am really heavily involved in.
Mhm.
We ended up with what a lot of our roadways are gonna have what's called a shared use path. So Highland Drive and 21st South both will have shared use path. We didn't have enough room to actually dedicate a bike lane. And so the intent is for cyclists and pedestrians to occupy the same space. We intentionally designed it down there to where hopefully cyclists are not going 15, 20 miles an hour on that thing, right?
You're coming down Ninth, you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, and so we kind of designed it with a different intent, and so a lot of our design elements went towards that. But I fully anticipate it's going to be a struggle for us to deal with that, and we knew that going into it, and it's hard to get everyone to occupy the same space and be happy with each other, and whether you mark it or demarcate it as a dedicated bike facility or not, there's a lot of pros and cons to that. So I don't know what we're doing with the 9-lane trail, I wish I did, I certainly can look into it.
They're having similar issues on Third West too, so I know that it's all
It's a
over
different
the
issue.
city.
Third West is absolutely a dedicated bike facility.
It is, but-
Yeah.
But
But-
driving over the dedicated bike
That's
the
facility
problem, yeah.
to get into
I've been
any
hit twice
commercial
on Third
place is,
West.
you know, so it's happening all over. And
There's not
it's,
signage either.
Yeah.
No,
The car's pulling out.
the cars don't understand where to stop.
And part of it too is that as we get more and more of these facilities, hopefully people start to learn how to use them a little bit better, but it's gonna take some time. Definitely a struggle. So thank you for sharing that comment with us.
thank you, Lynn. I think David had some questions.
Yeah, David?
Thanks, Lynn, for the
Yeah.
update on 1100 East. And this might sound like I'm complaining, but I really want to let you know that we appreciate the road being fixed, new curbs, new sidewalks, because I think it'll be really healthy. It's been bumpy for way too long. And I know that they initially had planned to finish all 1100 East last year, but they were slow for lots of reasons.
Lots of reasons.
And it's interesting, it's gonna take them from March to maybe November to get just this portion done.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future, at least with that construction, the city needs to be a little more honest with its citizens about how long it's gonna take.
That's a great comment.
When you checked on the traffic slowdown, it's great that it's reduced, and especially the volume is down. Did you have you had to go back to 2016 to find a base? There wasn't any
We
done
have
the year
like before data in this northern section, but I wanted to compare apples to apples, and that's where I went back and found a base for the southern section, right where we were measuring again. I found historic data that
Okay.
kind of did that, but our before data up here in the northern section is recent.
And I do think your observation that people think that it's a column course.
Yeah.
That is apt, because it's different than anything I've seen before, and maybe there are gonna be other places in the city that have it, but I feel like it's almost a guinea pig traffic calming situation as opposed to something that we know is gonna work.
All of these principles exist elsewhere. We kind of combine a little bit more than what you've seen elsewhere.
We've seen a lot of speed bumps lately
Mm-hmm.
in the neighborhood, and again, if they are cheaper and also calm the traffic just as much, then I suggest we use those.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're that much cheaper compared to what these are. These are
According to
not-
Bill, he said they're about $25,000 somehow.
And I don't
So I don't know what
remember,
your bump outs are, and
I don't remember off the top of my head what they are, but I think they're comparable.
the 9-line is a real problem, and just anecdotally, I almost got run over by a bike because no one knew exactly where, this is in Liberty Park, there's no lines there either.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
On the
if you're the
9-line.
wrong person to complain. to.
No, you can complain to me all day long.
But you need to take this information to whoever is
Yes.
responsible
Yeah.
and tell them that they need signage and lines, because people are going to get hurt. And a real good example of, you had mentioned that it's tough to paint at the end of the project, it got cold, it got wet, blah, blah, blah. Well, they painted some arrows at 9th and 9th recently, so they can paint arrows 2 weeks ago, they can paint the rest.
We're starting to
And they
stick
did
them in
paint
when the
some.
weather allows, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But.
Our prime window
it's-
for
it sounds-
painting
It
is,
sounds like that's an excuse, and I don't know if it solves the problem, because in addition to the paintage and the lack of signage at 9th and 9th, the lights were out. And so for all winter long, it was, not fun to drive through the area, and the lights are still out, and I know that's not, your problem.
well, but it affects us in a big
But
way.
it's the city's problem.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
the residents' problem. And, I don't know who you take that to get fixed, but I'm sure your risk manager would like to know that everyone has complained about an issue that is, potential risk. And if the city's not doing anything about it, then it exposes the city. And, the last one is, are the businesses up in Sugar House getting compensated for having to put up with their road being closed for a year?
Okay, so let me go down the list. So the paint thing, we try to sneak things in when we can. Our ideal window is somewhere around mid-April to mid-October. We actually have a specification that says that the pavement has to be a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, and it has to be dry.
They did go in during the dry time, the lines went in during that little.
Sometimes we'll go sneak one in, knowing that it doesn't meet that standard, and knowing that we'll have to come back and repaint it right away again. Because if we don't put the paint down when it meets that standard, it doesn't last. It doesn't stick and it doesn't last, and it makes us have to go out and repaint more and more and more and more. And so that's really, I mean, call it an excuse if you want, that's the reality of what that's like. The lighting issue, I know that we've had a lot of problems citywide with theft. Copper theft is a big problem. I know that's what's driving what's happening out there. These people will actually go in, grab a hold of the live wires, not get electrocuted somehow, and wrap them around a car axle and take off and just rip everything out. When that happens, it actually knots up the wires and it
What
tears out
happened here?
conduit and everything.
They have video of that?
They get a fraction of the value of what it takes for us to replace all that conduit and all that wiring. So, you know, it's like they do that to steal the copper, and it's horrible, because it costs so much more to put that stuff back together than what they get out of it. And so it's a real problem, and it's a problem that is not new. Earlier in my career, probably 10 years ago, UDOT and CDOT and other jurisdictions, I mean, this has been a perennial problem, but it seems to be getting worse. So I don't know. There's not good solutions to this problem.
Liberty Park has right now, they're budgeting, the city council is budgeting emergency funds for parks and lands to put gates for the first time in Liberty Park. We talked about this extensively at our loose meeting, so we're just basically repeating what we said there. In order to stop the copper theft, because it's not just magically pulling little thin pieces of copper out. It is destroying the entire, not just the post, but the conduit that goes under the street. So we just laid all this new area in 9th and 9th, and we've talked about this extensively, how they're trying to fix it without having to pull up all the cement again in front of all the businesses. So it's taking a while to get the lights fixed. And we get regular updates to our loose committee from Bill and everybody who's running the 900 South project. But I just want to remind everyone, 2 separate construction companies, 2 separate groups of people who are who are in charge of the projects. And the 900 South project does have a committed team of folks that if you have these complaints, we direct them right to them, because it goes, they have their own risk manager, they have their own PR people. So Lynn and Megan are very much 11th East and working with Beck Construction. So I would ask us, especially our neighborhood reps, when you're hearing from folks in the community, be mindful of which projects they're concerned about. And if it's something that we know they're already working on, we can get an update from them on it and then give it back to them. Right? Because I mean, I think unfortunately, we all know that it's a huge problem, but trying to fix it is, let's just be clear, Nobody in Ninth and Ninth who runs a business wants us to rip up or wants the city to rip up their sidewalk again. They don't want any more cones, they don't want any more construction. So as loud as we're yelling, they're yelling louder that the construction needs to be done there, and it shouldn't have gone on as long as it did. So also to answer your question, David, just to be clear, in Ninth and Ninth, what we did, and also is what's happening in Sugar House, is that there is a 3,000 compensation loan from the city, the economic development, so.
It's actually a grant. It's not a,
Yeah,
they don't. have to pay
yeah,
that,
not
yeah.
yeah, it's a grant. So when we did the 900 South project, we held regularly monthly meetings for all of our businesses and residents with the city. And we got them all to apply for those grants. Now, $3,000 isn't enough to cover
Is
up
that a
loss.
month or?
It's just,
That's
just-
it.
It's a year
I
and
mean,
it's not.
that's some businesses take for a week.
right. But that's the point, is that the compensation was supposed to be just to increase their advertising ability or their ability to let people know that they're still open and that kind of thing. It's not to compensate their losses, right? And again, like, that would be a great idea to compensate all of the businesses' losses citywide. But I mean, our taxes would have to go way up to do this. Now, again, as I'm gonna tell you guys again what the issue is. And also we ran this on our social media along with Sugar House, is that this road work is all being paid for by the Funding Our Future bond that expires. So the reason why there's doing so many road projects all at the same time is because once that expires, they can't fix any roads. So if anybody in the room or anybody has in line has any concepts on how to do road construction and, you know, basically redo the infrastructure of Salt Lake as it ages, because it's gonna keep happening. I mean, we're pretty clear right now for a second. We got 11th East down and we've got 9 South down. But, you know, 8 South and other streets are gonna be next in line. So if anybody has any questions on how the city can do that without disrupting business, you know, or then, you know, we should get together in a loose meeting and have a conversation about that. Because I'm sure they'd like to hear our ideas.
Very good. It's incredibly challenging, and unfortunately, this is what all the deferred maintenance looks like, right? Like
It's awful.
for a long time, we didn't rebuild any roads. And that's what the bond was all about, was us catching up on more than a decade of deferred maintenance. And that means that you take what would have been spread out over a long time, we're doing it all right now. And it's frustrating and it's hard and it's devastating on businesses. And we know that, right? Like, I think that anecdotally, I'm trying to get some data to support exactly how much it's impacted the businesses in Sugar House. Anecdotally, I've heard from a lot of the business owners that they're down around 20 to 30% from what they were. Most of them, and you know, to be honest, we've been talking with them for 2-3 years now about this is coming. A lot of them have been really great about planning for what's coming. Some of our projects get delayed for whatever reason. The Highland Drive project's actually right on schedule. 21st South right now, they've only been working on it for 3 weeks. They're actually a little bit ahead of their schedule, which is really exciting for us. We hope that that trend continues. I'm gonna be honest with you, this 11th East project, phase 1 that you guys saw last year, it was a mess. Let's not like mince words. It was like a bomb went off. And, you ask why it's gonna take so long. You ask why it's gonna take so long this year is because we, at the end of last year as a team, sat down and said, that didn't go well. What can we do different? And one of the big things we said that we're gonna do different is that we're not gonna just go hog wild and tear up the entire road and then try to put it back together. We're gonna try to hold the contractor to one side of the road at a time, maybe a smaller work zone, and that takes longer because he can't just go crazy and go nuts, but you know, it's trying to balance the impacts to you as a community and what you guys have to deal with and not have it be so spread out. Now, if you guys all come to me and say, I'd rather have this done a lot faster and I don't care how painful it is, maybe we can let the contractor cut loose like he did down south. they'll say, hey, we'll go faster. I don't know if they actually do or not, right? I mean,
Mm.
we wanna serve you guys, right? And we know it's painful and we know it's not fun. It's trade-offs and trying to figure out what trade-off best fits the community. That's what we're trying to do, and hopefully this year we do a better job of it than we did last year. We certainly have had a lot of debriefs saying, what went wrong? What can we do different? How do we not let that happen? And honestly, there's blame to go around. I mean, we can blame the contractor, we can blame the city. It's our project. We're a team. We need to get this done together. You guys are part of that team as our community. We're here to serve you as best as we can. I know it's not fun. But hopefully at the end of it, we have a new road. So, does that all make sense? And any other questions? I'm happy to.
Yeah, are any of the 11 Bs projects touching sidewalks at all?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
They're quite
Yeah.
constrained right now.
Well, so unfortunately, in this northern section, we don't have enough room in the right of way to widen those sidewalks. If we wanted to widen the sidewalks up here in this northern section, we would have had to probably reduce the amount of park strip that we had.
Mhm.
Because we're not able to acquire more property to widen those sidewalks just because the costs are astronomical. And so we looked at that pretty hard and we said, you know, if you widen the sidewalk and you narrow the park strip, that's not that much better of a condition. And we said, that's probably not worth it. The road is already it's already as small as it can get, so we can't shrink the road to widen the sidewalks because it just doesn't pan out that way. What we are doing with sidewalks in this area is anywhere it's broken, heaved, cracked, things that are not in good shape, we're replacing those as we go. So, we find a section of concrete that's messed up, we'll fix it. To the south, down in Sugar House, we were able to minimize the road cross section just a little bit
Mhm.
and, provide a big shared use path on the west side of the road down there.
And
So you'll
what's the
see,
design that?
it varies. At some places it's over 14 feet wide, some places it's 8. It just, depending on where we are on the corridor, wide enough to be considered a shared use path for the business district area.
Mhm.
But that took some creativity. The other thing that we had to do down there is we really wanted to save the existing trees. And so, you know, up here as well, we go and widen all the sidewalks, we narrow the park strips. You're killing a lot of trees, and we didn't wanna do that as much as we could. So trade-offs, it's all balancing, right? Yeah.
So I live on 11th East,
Okay,
right there. I'll be in it in June with you guys. But, so I noticed on the plan, you'll have, no parking on the west side and only parking on the east side, on the street.
it alternates.
Is that gonna be flexible? It'll alternate or?
It alternates. So what we did is we went block by block and we counted how many cars were parked on each block.
Yeah,
And we did it at different dates, different times and tried to figure out what the worst case scenario was for each block.
yeah,
We also looked at how many driveways and how many fire hydrants and how many parking restrictions were already out there. And we tried to maximize the amount of stalls that we had left over.
mhm,
But unfortunately, this road is only 40 feet wide. There's only 40 feet of asphalt,
yeah.
which sounds like a lot, but it's not.
Yeah,
And it's not enough to actually get the 2 travel lanes, parking on both sides and a comfortable bike lane. And so we went through a process here with ELPCO several years
5
ago.
years ago.
We looked at alternatives. One of the alternatives was to just have it be narrow bike lanes, narrow parking, narrow lanes, and have it all be compressed.
yeah,
And then we also looked at the concept that you see, which is the buffered bike lane. But we had to eliminate parking from one side of the street in order to do the buffered bike lane. So the little curb islands that you see have absolutely nothing to do with that parking restriction. It's the buffered bike lane that's driving that.
yeah,
And so getting that buffered bike lane in means that we had to keep parking only on one side of the street. We tried to maximize the amount of parking we had left over, and we also looked at where people had off-street parking.
mhm,
And we try to make sure that there's one property on this corridor that doesn't have any off-street parking. And ironically, their block face is the one that actually has the fewest drive cuts. Makes sense, he doesn't have a driveway, so
mhm.
that kind of worked out. So we took all that into consideration in what we were doing. Unfortunately, the problem we have now is that a lot of people are really confused about where can I park, where can't I park,
Yeah.
where's the bike lane, where's not the bike
Is
lane?
there a more detailed map or anything? Cause I'm cause
Yeah,
I park on the street right in
I
front
got
of
it
my house
right
right
here,
now,
so-
so I'm wondering if I'm meant to be parking on the other side.
if you want, I'll hang out afterwards and I'll pull it out and we can
Okay.
look at your specific location.
Yeah,
But,
that'd be great.
I think something we're probably gonna have to do is add a few more pavement markings and all of the no parking signage in the southern section should be correct now. We went through a pretty exhaustive effort to actually add a few. We got it open, we said, it's still not quite right. And we added a few more signs and we're glad, well, that's easy. Adding signs, adding markings. We can continue to do that until we get it dialed in. We don't want to just go hog wild and add like a bike symbol every quarter of a block. That gets to be obnoxious for people.
Yeah.
So we're kind of strategic in how we do that, but I'm gonna keep adding it until everyone's good and clear on what's supposed to be happening out there. And yeah, it'll take us a little while.
To be clear, I mean, Lynn is again, incredibly, helpful if we have a question or suggestion. You know, we're waiting for nubs for keep the skateboarders off and things like this. So not that he can wave his magic wand and get it to us right away, but if we need concerns, if we have questions or we have suggestions, we need to hear from our community and from our board all the time, you know, and we need to just keep having conversations about updates if things are getting updated. And thank you for coming here tonight. And also thank you, David, for sort of keeping on top of all the different comments from your neighbors and things you've been hearing to, you know, do exactly what I'm talking about. We might not all get our way, but it's the conversation that's important, and it helps us understand what the trade-offs are gonna be. So thanks, Lynn, for coming. All right, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna introduce my good friend Steve here. I've been very lucky to get to work with Steve on this constituent-based CIP application that is coming, that we are working with closely with Steve, the constituent. I'm gonna let you introduce everything.
Okay.
I'm gonna not give you away because you're such a good speaker.
Oh,
And I am gonna tell you that we, meaning ELPCO, Christina, your chair, has been working on this for many years before I became chair, and we're very much collaborating again with our friends in Central Ninth. And some people from the Loose have had the chance to go down there and meet with Central Ninth, Doug, and their people. So I appreciate all that cross communication and things that are happening. And do you want to tell them a little about CIP and process and where we're at?
Sure, I'll try and
This
throw
is
that in.
Steve.
So my name's Steve Verno. I'm actually with Equality Utah. And we have applied for a CIP grant, community improvement grant, if you will, from Salt Lake City. There's a lot of those right now. And so we're in the process. We've already had our sort of hearing with the city and with the staff. And now we're kind of at the mercy of the mayor and the city council in this period until she has her budget that rolls out this summer. And we're hoping that she'll include our project in that process. Our project is called the Harvey Milk Neighborhood Visibility Project. And so Harvey Milk Boulevard, which used to be 900 South, and I'm saying that because in 2016, Salt Lake City changed the name of 900 South to Harvey Milk Boulevard. And a lot of people don't even know that that's the case. Does anybody not know who Harvey Milk is?
Is it just a part?
It is 20 blocks. It is it's from the Whale, from 11th East, actually 13th East.
13, yeah.
13th East to 9th West to the Granary
Oh, wow.
is all Harvey Milk Boulevard.
Cool.
And so, you know, Equality Utah was instrumental in getting it named. Does anybody not know who Harvey Milk was, or do I need to go into detail on that? I have
think we're
flyers
old
that,
enough.
I hope so. You know, the younger generation doesn't. I do have flyers. I have,
A lot of people.
yeah, I have a lot of these. If you can pass it around, if anybody wants one, it tells you a little bit more about who Harvey Milk was. But at any rate, we are hoping to improve the visibility for the LGBTQ plus community along Harvey Milk Boulevard, the entire stretch of it. And so we've requested a grant, and you know, the mayor will decide ultimately how much we get. But what we're looking to do with that is to install LGBTQ inspired art projects all up and down Harvey Milk Boulevard. And some examples of some of the things that we're looking to do would be, part of our request is to add 23 bike racks along the 9 line, that will be commissioned by the City Arts Council to artists to design LGBTQ inspired art on the bike racks. And then we've asked for 15 benches, just random places to sit and enjoy Harvey Milk Boulevard along the way. We also are asking for 3 freestanding art installations. I say think the whale, but it won't be quite that big and hopefully not that controversial. I love the whale though.
I do too. Sorry.
But there'll be 2 or 3 others along the rest of the boulevard. We're hoping something to anchor the other end of Harvey Milk Boulevard with the whale on this end and a couple more in the middle. And then the last piece of it would be to install banners, the banner poles all along Harvey Milk Boulevard as well. And I have some samples here.
I just want to clarify one thing that Steve said, though, just for our board and everybody who's in the room that's going to be working on CIP in the future. The mayor puts forth her recommended budget, which of course, that's what we want our CIP projects to be part of, but it's actually the city council who has the final say in what is funded. So just for future.
Right. So what's going around is just a mock-up. It's not what you will actually see on the banners or on the signs, but it's just to give you an idea. And the city will not fund the banners themselves. They will help us install this infrastructure to hang them on, but they will not pay for the banners because they're somewhat temporary. They don't last forever. And so we're soliciting with a number of nonprofits, including Equality Utah. We're also working with that stretch of Harvey Milk actually encompasses 5 community councils. You're just one of them. And I've been to several of them to have this conversation as well. And so we're even looking at using it to sort of identify the communities. So perhaps in this section at the bottom, as you can see on those, it has a central 9, I think. We would have East Liberty Park or something on the bottom through that section, or greenery or ballpark or whatever area it is would be identified in that section. And we envision the banners being kind of in the business districts along Harvey Milk Boulevard. And so that's kind of what we're doing. Why you may ask? Obviously just to increase visibility, but hate crimes against the LGBTQ plus community in Salt Lake have been doubling year over year for the last 5 years, with last year being the highest ever in Salt Lake City. And so part of what we're hoping to accomplish is by creating more visibility, more awareness, you create more sense of safety or educating people about the LGBTQ plus communities so that members of that community feel safe being on our streets. And so that's part of what we're doing. Also just, art. And there's a couple other exciting things that are a part of this. The city's master plan that they wrote 20 years ago named 9th South as an arts district. That was their plan for 9th South, was it, or to be an arts district. And so this contributes to that. Also, the mayor's new project, the Green Belt, that you're familiar, Green Loop. The 9th South or Harvey Milk Boulevard is the south side of the Green Loop as well.
To the west of us. So
Yeah.
not all the way up here, but all the way down and
Right.
you know.
So all of those things kind of tie in together and, we're not gonna create more construction or, anything that should dig things up, I hope. But that's what I'm here to tell you about. If you have any questions.
So these are some of the things that you plan to do. I was just reading this. He's got some great quotes. That would be nice. to hear.
Yeah.
I'm thinking from kind of the perspective of a conservative person, because I have a lot very conservative friends. I just even looking at a couple of, you know,
It's a good idea.
the quotes, I feel like it would be hard for even conservative people to disagree with those things, these messages. So anyway, I think that's.
Another, you know, we can change these banners and do different things with them. Another thing I would like to see, possibly just in one section, I don't know, would be to identify what I call LGBTQ plus heroes from Salt Lake City. Because some people say, well, Harvey Milk was in San Francisco. What does he have to do with Salt Lake City? But, you know, there's other prominent LGBTQ leaders in Salt Lake City that we could honor and recognize on those banners as well. So that's an option.
I've got two questions, I guess. Who would be in charge of the banners? And then also, are you seeking support from the East Liberty Park community for your CIP? Or is this just information that you want to provide to us? Because if you're seeking for support, I move that we support you.
Yeah.
That's up to your chair here. I'm just here for information.
So to
but-
be clear, that's a great question, and
Yeah.
it was the similar question that came up in our 9th and 9th meeting. Is that we don't, you know, the way that our budget works and traditionally has worked is that we don't have budget for these types of things. But if, you know, just to, again, clarify, this is a constituent-based
And I'm the
application.
constituent.
And he's the constituent, right? So we, Central 9th and ELPCO have been big community council supporters, but there's lots of other people supporting at different levels.
We
So
have
if they
gotten.
came to us with a specific proposal on something they needed money for, so potentially the banners at some point or whatever, we would discuss with our community and our board if that was something we would want to put money towards. That's how our budget works. But we are dedicating a lot of time and energy into supporting.
We have gotten endorsements from Central 9th, Greenery, Ballpark. They have already done what you said and voted, so if you wanted to do that, I wouldn't be opposed to.
I think
that.
he's talking more about, whether or not you would want a contribution.
No, not
Maybe I
yet. No, we don't.
misunderstood.
We're not
I
asking
just
for
wanted to
money.
know if you were seeking
Yeah.
support, kind of like a
Yes.
resolution.
I mean,
Yes,
obviously,
East Liberty Park
right now,
Community Council
right now,
endorse it, right?
The key right now is that we're at the mercy of the city council and the mayor. And so the more community support, the more folks she hears from about this project, the better our chances are for funding it.
Christina, can I make a motion?
Yes,
I move that we, at East Liberty Park Community Organization, endorse and support the,
Our neighborhood visibility project.
thank you.
I second that.
all in favor? Great, so as far as this is a project, this was something that was started before us, so ELPCO, like, I'm the only person that's here tonight that's been on that board, so this is something that we have been endorsing for a while. So I'm glad that we have the new endorsement, just to be clear. So, moving forward on this, I want to empower the board and the community to come up with, suggestions on how we want to support, like, do we want to write another letter? Do we want to write a letter to the mayor? The CIP process is clear. We've jumped through those hoops. But if there are anything, additional steps that our board would like to take to support this project, let me know. I'll make sure we get it on our agenda.
I wanted to address your last question, though. You asked who's gonna be in charge of the banners. Obviously me, but we will be, Equality Utah will probably have some funds available for that. The Central 9th Community Council has said that they have some funds, at least for their section for that. And so we'll be getting some feedback from community councils, and possibly they have a contest of an artist to design them. Timeline, something you should hear. If this goes into the city budget this summer, that means it's funded for 2025. And then we have to commission artists and order the equipment and get it painted And so you probably won't see any of this until sometime in 2026.
Interesting.
So it's much in the future.
In the meantime, we have, this is the only CIP project I've ever worked on that actually has an Instagram. Can you tell them?
Yeah, we have an Instagram, can give you if you want. I have posters that we've been using primarily to hang in, businesses along Harvey Milk. But if you want to scan, you can, if you need the Instagram, but it's basically Harvey Milk Boulevard visibility.
So you can follow that and share it to your
And
friends
you
if you're
can-
interested in. Yeah. And then we can route questions through Steve. So
Any other questions?
So you're already working, you've already been working on this, you don't need anyone from the board at this point unless we decide to do something more formal to support this project in any way.
So the way that the CIP happens is that like,
Yeah.
he didn't really need us to start, like,
Yeah.
he doesn't need us in any way.
Yeah.
None of the constituent-based CIP projects actually need, that. But because it's something that we've been working on ELPCO, since 2016, right, when Buskupski changed the name and stuff like that, it's something we've been heavily involved in, right?
It wasn't, it was before.
Well, we got involved
Yeah.
in 2016 when the
Yeah.
name actually changed,
Yeah.
you know, we were there. So that's a good question, Marnie, in that, we have lent initial support,
Yeah.
to the CIP process,
Uh-huh.
right? But this process is bigger than most CIP folks.
Yeah.
That they have their own website and it's really progressed at more of a, you know, it's having a life of its own, similar to the web. So that said, ELPCO doesn't really have a role in this unless
No, and there's
they
just
invite us
mentioned
in.
one other thing, and Christine is well aware of this, but we're also partnered with 9 Line Up,
Which I started.
which Christina started, and I've worked with her on that.
Mhm.
Because we really want to make Harvey Milk Boulevard a fun place to visit, and we want the businesses along it to be successful. So May 18th and 19th, we'll be doing 9 Line Up again, and hopefully have some art stuff, some gallery strolls
Mhm.
on Harvey Milk again. And last time we did an LGBTQ artist gallery stroll
At Milk.
at Milk Plus. And so we'll continue to do things like that again.
Great. So if there's no more questions for Steve, I mean, this is a great segue into the next part of our conversation and something that we did. Are you gonna?
No, I'm good. Thank you for-
So we're into the part about ELPCO business and we're getting close to the end. So we're gonna make this fast in that, we did meet as a committee, a 9th and 9th committee, this week. And it was really helpful. Amy isn't here tonight, but, we have the role of the 9th and 9th business liaison. But as long as I've been part of ELPCO, when we started that role, none of us have ever known really what that person should be doing. So we finally got together and figured out what would work. And Amy has been really gracious to, be the leader of, this, essentially what's gonna kind of look like a committee in which all of these things that are happening in 9th and 9th, we are going to be able to share them with Amy and the group in a more strategic way. And just because it's a little confusing, there's a lot happening on 900 South, 9th and 9th, Liberty Park that have nothing to do with us and potentially have something to do with like me as an individual, which I do for my work or whatever. So that's gonna be really helpful for us to have that download and to have Amy in that position to help keep everything straight and make sure it's communicated back to the ELPCO board and the ELPCO community in a good way. In addition to that, I'm just gonna run through the new business real quick so we can really make the neighborhood boost grant thing good. The other new business we have is going to be presented by David. He has volunteered to start a new committee that was brought up at our last board meeting. Do you want to go ahead?
So the new committee is gonna be a cultural history committee. Anyone that's interested in it and ELPCO can be on the committee, and I look forward to working with them. We don't have a budget intentionally. Our goal is to highlight to the general public the history of our neighborhood, including businesses, homes, streets, firehouses, schools. And it's meant to be informative for everyone. We're not, we're providing this information as just an information to not only people that live here, but also people that would like to live here or are visiting. And some of the projects that I've thought about is photographs that perhaps present business is located in, that they might, if they are interested, and they might show that, frame the photo and have it in their building. And very quickly, I did look at some old photos within the city. I know the Salt Lake Tribune had some that they have at the library at the university. Anyway, I went to the city engineers, where I found some pictures that the city engineer took of photos from 1924, and there was one of Harvard between 1100 East and 13th East.
I
Your
have some
street.
pictures
It's
too of
dirt.
my house.
I've got, well,
You
yeah,
got dirt? Oh, I
yeah,
wanna see
no, I
that.
got a picture of your house.
You do?
Yeah,
I wanna see-
it's in the Marriott Library.
Oh,
There's an
cool.
old fashioned car in front of, in your driveway. It's not a very good picture of your house because it's mostly the street, which is dirt, but.
Right, it's amazing to look at the street and the trees aren't there.
No, there's no
Those
trees.
old- I mean,
There's
it's
no
like
trees.
barren.
There's a picture of the fire station that's up by the whale,
Mhm.
but what it used to be in 1924.
Oh.
There's no trees anywhere. It's just, nothing.
I've got some old pictures of the old streetcar that ran up and down 11th East, but they're
Oh.
more south, but it's just
Oh,
cool.
cool.
It's cool to see that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, well, then we need your photos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
David, please send me an email. I will forward you what I
Okay.
have.
Great, thank you.
David, are you, are you guys working with other, community councils as well? Because like,
We
On-
just
on
started,
history?
so the answer is
Just
no.
barely
on
started.
Tuesday, because I think a lot, well, I'm just saying, I think a lot of this, the history that we're talking about is shared by people all across, maybe
Right.
Salt Lake, you
Well, I know
know?
Sugar House has a ton of old photos. I've seen them in places around and that would, so, yeah, no, we're not working with other community councils, but there's no reason why we
The
can't.
Mighty Vault.
Yeah, right, and, this information we can, I mean, it's not just photos, but it's also information we put on our webpage. We have a separate section on the East Liberty Park webpage, once it gets up and running, that we could vote to, this is who we are now, and this is who we were then, type thing.
We can bring back our tour series. We did tours. ELPCO has done tours once a year for our neighborhood, so that will be fun. David, thank you
Yes.
for volunteering to do this, and thank you to the crew of David, Marshall, Alicia, and Amy, who met to sort of pound through this. This was originally born out of our interest in creating historical plaques for the 9th and 9th neighborhood, but it actually grew to a historical interest in all of East Liberty Park, which is even better. But that idea is not completely dead. And that will be something that David will work with the 9th and 9th business liaison. So we don't run into any of the same problems that we've had previously. So I think I'm really excited for us, our ELPCO board again, for stepping up our communication and starting to think more strategically about what we want to see. David, thanks for taking that on.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any comments about new business or business just that they'd like to bring up at this time? Anybody out there? Okay, so the last thing on our schedule is the Neighborhood Boost Grant, and Marnie Chandler is the chair of our Neighborhood Boost Grant Committee, so we'll give you the floor.
Okay, well, I'm assuming.
I'm Sandra.
You must be Sandra. Sandra, I'm meeting for the first time. Sandra is the development director.
Yeah, development manager.
Manager here at the Aviary. And I guess everybody got an introduction to this project. And we actually voted this, thank you everybody for responding so quickly. We voted to approve this and to give, the $2,500 that we have for the boost grant, all of it to the Andy Condor project. And so Sandra's here to answer any questions, but would you mind just giving a very brief,
Yeah.
just what is the plan? I think it's somewhat based on how quickly you can raise the funds as well, but you're well on your way with that.
Yeah, so we're like committed to doing the project regardless of how much we raise, but it helps, have us more money for operations, the more we can raise for this specific project. So yeah, if you don't know, Andy was a Condor who lived here for about 63 years or something, many years. And yeah, we wanted to recognize him with a statue. And so we're having an artist in, I think he's around LA, Los Angeles. And he's right now finishing the sculpting of it and just like putting details on it. And if you check out our Facebook page, or Andy actually has his own Facebook page, so you can check out that and like see all the updates, and there's some videos about it.
And Condor.
Yes.
Andy
And you can see the updates there, so then they have to make the mold, and then they're gonna send that here and get it cast in bronze at a foundry, so it kind of depends like how quickly the foundry does it. But we're expecting maybe late May or early June at the earliest for installation. It could be a little later depending, but hopefully
Cool.
this summer at least. And yeah, I guess another thing is we're planning on having it like right down here at the entrance. So when you walk in, it'll be like one of the first things you see. You can take a picture with Andy. So that's what we're thinking. And yeah, I'm here to answer your questions, and thank you so much for the additional funding.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give this to you.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta take a picture.
Photo
Oh.
Photo op.
Should we go like this?
Camera, action.
You should have like a picture of Andy ready. Yeah.
Or in front of the bird.
No,
That's what we should do.
In front of the bird window?
Let's
Photoshop.
also pull the picture.
Yeah, we have to do that.
No,
It'll be here.
really, Alicia thinks it would be.
No,
better in
it's
front of
just
the
bird.
Like slightly more
Yeah.
scenic than the Zoom.
Can we do it again? Go over there.
Our namesake, Russell Lord Tracy.
I don't want.
That's not gonna be a good picture.
No, no.
I can do it. I could do it.
wanna
The
do?
reflection's gonna be.
Yeah.
Oh, any,
Yeah, the
I was gonna say, any
Or
of you
should
guys
we-
can be in
I
there.
have Photoshop people.
We're all.
Where am I going?
Make me do this by the, okay, good, yeah, don't make me do it.
Get in there.
Do we really need to hold it or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a tiny check.
Like they hold the free check.
Thank you. Did
So
you?
you should make a big one for
It's
one of the
Ben's
statue rides, you can stick them.
Yeah.
I know, that's
I know,
big.
yeah, big checks before.
Ribbon cutting.
I think Facebook will be perfectly happy with this photo. It's not gonna go down in a framed thing, so. All right, thank you all for putting up with us as we take awful photographs. So,
It's fine, yeah. But yeah, just if you haven't seen the Facebook page, he was working on the head, so like. This is what the head looks like.
Nice.
Sorry for people on Zoom, but
Yeah,
go to his Facebook page.
okay.
So he's putting in all the feather detail right now, I guess.
Excuse me,
Wow.
you said he's 63 years old?
I believe so, and I think like 61 years were spent here. I would have to check. There's an article on our website that has more
Really?
detail about it. But yeah, he was here for a long time. And our current curator of bird show, who I think has been here over 10 years, was like one of his really close friends. She'd take him for a walk every morning around the aviary, and I never got to go on a
my
walk.
kid's absolute favorite. I mean, almost every kid who was raised here in this aviary, and he was
Yeah.
the favorite.
Mhm. Yeah, we have like people from like Florida and Texas like donating to this. And I'm like, have you visited? They're like, no, I just love Andy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is it the Facebook page? Is that what you're talking, Annie's Facebook page, or is it?
Yeah, it's called Andy and Condor, yeah.
Yeah,
Have
okay.
you raised
Yeah,
all the money
cool.
that you need, or are you still?
No, we still have a lot to raise.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we don't like raise it from the community, it'll just come out of our like general operating budget.
So just on that note, just an update, and that we have met with all of the other community councils who we share Liberty Park with, and we have all agreed that on doing the GoFundMe, and we have all of the verbiage. Thank you, Sandra, again, so that we can all use the same verbiage for fundraising in our community. So the next step is helping Tracy Aviary by doing a community GoFundMe page that just redirects to their fundraising site. And we're in that with Liberty Wells, thank you, Liberty Wells, and the Central City Neighborhood Council, so.
Yeah, so with this, we have about 30,000 left to raise, because the whole statue is 40,000, I think. With all of the artist's time and all the materials and getting it here and installation and everything, so. Kind of expensive, but yeah.
Well, thank you. We're excited to be able to contribute a small part to this, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right, Sandra, thanks for being here so late. It looks as if we are just barely over schedule, like 5 minutes. We did pretty good tonight. So if everybody is okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Second, okay. We are adjourned. Thank you for attending ELPCO's March community meeting, and we'll see you in April.
Thank you.